if you have this view of God that he is going to be chucking people into a lake of fire based on what they believe, good people, bad people, sort them out based on what they believe, then why wouldn't you also do that? Sort people into the good and bad basket based on what they believe throughout your life. But if instead you think that God values the person, the image of God, the image bearer, the soul, regardless of the mental furniture that's going on right now, and that love runs deeper than that, then you might find that you too are capable of that kind of love.
Well, welcome back to Open to Truth, a podcast all about exploring big ideas and discovering truth together, where our goal is to help you think freely, clearly, and critically about the things that matter most. My name's Clint.
Hey, I'm Tony. Welcome back. Nice work, man.
Got the new little tagline in, the mission statement.
That's good.
Goal.
All right, so what are we exploring today?
What I'd like to explore is this term that I first heard, might have been years ago when you were in the program at this place called Sioux Falls Seminary. And they have this little program called the Kairos program, kind of distance learning training for pastors. Mm-hmm. And one of their values is theological hospitality. Mm-hmm. Theological hospitality. And immediately when I first heard that, that kind of resonated with me as like, it's an intriguing idea. Mm-hmm. I say yes and amen. Like what I want to think more about today with you, what that really means.
Yeah.
But as I hear it, I'm like, yes, that seems like the right kind of posture that, I don't know, well-adjusted adults, humans who are Jesus followers should have.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's something that you see on display in that seminary as well, because they have students from, I think, every country, just about every denomination. It's a real melting pot, a theological melting pot. And they have gatherings where all the students come and hang out like for a week. So it's kind of a requirement that they make this a front and center value, because there's plenty of conversations happening cross-denominationally there.
So you might have a student who is a complementarian, someone, like, there's more to it than this, but that maybe don't think women should have certain roles in the church.
Yep.
Whereas an egalitarian, there is no boundary for what women can do in the church.
Yep.
So you'd have students, each might think each of those positions, and now they're brought together and asked to be hospitable toward one another. Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
Yeah.
And is that a good value or not?
Oh.
I don't know. Let's talk about that too.
Yeah. Like, is there something dangerous?
I don't want to like just write it off or just assume that it's obviously good.
Just because it's a cute phrase.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, can it go too far? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So here's just one thought about assessing whether it's good is, I don't know, you might say, look, I have really good reasons for thinking that the position I've come to is true, and it would be better if other people also thought this way, because then more people would be acquainted with reality and know the truth. As arrogant as that might sound, I mean, some people are in that situation. Like they happen to have the correct view. And so that might, and this is where maybe it's the leap in logic or behavioral ethical logic, then I should go out of my way to try to persuade people that I'm right and show people the error of their ways. Because wouldn't you want to know that you're not in line with the truth? That's great for you, because now you've shored up one of your deficiencies. Now you know the truth.
You should want this. Yeah.
I take that to not be what theological hospitality.
They're trying to convince the other. Yeah.
I don't think. Although, I mean, what's your response to that?
That's just how anybody who thinks they're right, though. Like, everybody thinks they're right. That's why you think what you think.
Yeah.
If you thought it was wrong, you would change it. When I think about hospitality, I think about your classic example of hospitality, the
guests for dinner.
Guests for dinner, yeah. I'm having someone over to my place.
Walk me through it. What happens?
Here's my territory, my domain, where I feel safe, And now I'm inviting somebody else to come and share this space with me, to share the goods that I have, the food I'm going to provide. I'm going to serve them, and meet their needs.
It's almost going above treating them as an equal.
It is.
You're putting yourself under.
I'm serving them. Well, yeah, really.
I take your coat, or...
Yeah. Or I don't expect you to serve me dinner when you come to my house, Like, I'm going to serve you dinner.
Yeah.
So there's this posture of preferring the other that's involved in hospitality and involved in love generally. And another thing is like, maybe you ask them to take off their shoes when they come in. Like, we have some customs in this house or something. But you're not asking them to be someone else. You're not asking them to change their outfit.
Yeah.
And, could you put a different shirt on before you come in? Like, no, come as you are. And you are welcome in this. I want you to feel overwhelmingly welcome with me. That's regular hospitality.
So theological hospitality then is, I guess, all of those same postures, but just in the realm of ideas.
In the realm of ideas.
About your faith, specifically.
And I guess in, rather than physical space, in social space, conversational space, relational space.
And so I guess maybe to kick us off then, does what we just described as theological hospitality exclude the caricature from earlier, old mate who wants to persuade people of the truth? Is that allowed, or does it just need to be, we need to nuance it up a little bit?
That not hospitable?
Yeah.
I think, I just think that, at least for me, is that desire to persuade and acquaint with the truth, that just takes a bit of a back seat when I'm in hospitality mode. Again, if it's about preferring the other person, I would want to, let's talk about it this way. At a minimum, if I'm sitting down to a conversation with somebody who thinks differently than me and I'm trying to be theologically hospitable, at a minimum, I need to genuinely seek to understand them. Give them the space to articulate their position and meet that articulation with grace and not a reaction and not a furrowed brow and none of that. Just create space for them to be who they are, to express who they are, and to get really curious, for me to get curious about who they are. And then if I'm in the situation where I really think they've said some things that are off the wall or wrong, and I have some truth that, man, I should persuade them of this, that's just going to take a back seat. It's that's down the road. The relationship for me is the priority. Let's have the conversation. Let's have the space. And eventually...
Should that be the case for everybody? Is this like does this elevate
to live by?
Yes.
It's a principle I live by. Just that it's not going to be this way with everybody, but you would expect that as you build a relationship with this person, there's a camaraderie that builds. Eventually, they're going to ask you about what you think, and hopefully, they're able to reciprocate the same space you've provided for them.
Or maybe not. What if maybe not?
Maybe not. Maybe not. I think it needs to be about refusing to reduce the other person to being the sum of their ideas. It's about seeing past, here's everything they believe at the moment, their ideas, the way they see the world, and they're offering this to me, and I disagree with some of it. But there's a person underneath all of that, because ideas come and go, beliefs change, all of that can change. But there's someone made in the image of God that is infinitely valuable, despite whatever current beliefs are populating in the brain. And so I'm going to hang on to that. I'm going to love the person, regardless of the ideas, first. Now I get it. Maybe the counterpoint is the way I love them is by telling them the truth. They need to hear it. I
hear people saying, quoting the "Speak the truth in love" passage. But often it is done in not the most loving manner.
It's that. I'm not suggesting you need to be dishonest about what you believe or be silent on it and just refuse to not say anything. But you can still offer a contrary view in a way that is not combative. You can do that. You don't have to with your tone, with your body language. It doesn't have to become a fight. It can be, man, I really see that differently. This is kind of the way I think about it. How does that strike you? You know, it doesn't have to be a fight. It just doesn't.
Right.
Can be. Lots of people want it to be. It might naturally tend that way without conscious effort.
So that's over the course of a conversation. You know, I mean, yeah, man, hopefully I have a high hope in my heart that these students that go through that program, and hopefully we can be modeling this as leaders at a church or just in common courtesy talkings with people
Society,
in the community,
just regular social,
that you could make it through a conversation in person with someone and be hospitable and not get totally riled up and angry to where you need to shout at them or say that cast aspersions and judgments toward them. But then there's this extra layer of, what about like ongoing relationship, fellowship? Are there some ideas and beliefs that preclude that possibility, that make that not wise or not possible? Is that true? Or, and then I guess the follow-up, does that matter for theological hospitality, or is that something different?
I'm thinking about what we see modeled in Jesus and like the kinds of people he interacted with, the kind of relationships he pursued. Your question is, are there some people that you shouldn't have fellowship with because of their ideas, worldview, whatever, and that it might lead you astray or something? Is that kind of what you're getting at? It's just not gonna. You're not gonna
end up leading you astray.
Okay.
Or just. Yeah, I do. I guess I want to know about, should fellowship be broken because of beliefs or not pursued, let's say, and then how does that relate to the theological hospitality? I'm just wondering the limits of that.
Yeah.
What does hospitality require of me in the theological lane? So, for instance, I mean, I don't know, I might have a family over for dinner from our church, and I'm very hospitable, and we had a very nice time. Am I required to like go out of my way and do that as much as I can, or build these friendships with everyone? Surely not.
Oh, I
right?
don't think so. No.
So I'm just wondering how that pertains to theological hospitality then. Is it purely just when I do encounter people that disagree, then just don't be a douche?
Yeah, I mean, I don't
is
think...
that all it is, or
well,
is there more to it?
It might be that simple. I don't think we're saying like, hey, as a Christian, go out of your way to pursue the spiritual path with a Buddhist and see if you end up in the same spot. I don't think we're saying that, like have tight fellowship with somebody who thinks differently than you as you pursue God. That said, I think probably be really good for you to build a relationship with a Buddhist and hang out with them and hear what they have to say. So, yeah, I guess it depends how you're defining that fellowship thing. But for me, I don't know, man, it's blown pretty wide open. I'd like to think I could have fellowship with just about anybody. I say that though, I can think of people who I would struggle with, where I'd get triggered, you know, and where it would be harder for me to remain hospitable.
Would you mind sharing like what ideas come to mind?
It probably just is more of that really reformed leaning. It's a school of thought I came from that I'm no longer compelled by.
Like the strong election stuff, predestination.
Yep.
God just chooses who goes to heaven and hell.
Yeah.
But nothing to do with you. Just
now I say that, I think I could certainly have conversations with folks without shouting or getting mad or anything.
Yeah.
But those are the conversations where I would find little pangs of, oh man.
There's a guy at the seminary that I'm learning a lot from, and he puts it this way, like, can you get to the place where you can still cheer for that person and their ministry and celebrate what God is doing in their life, I guess?
Yeah.
Which is that more, I don't know, maybe active hospitality than like this passive, just general goodwill.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just not going to go out of my way to fight with people.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean you're hospitable.
That's different than inviting people in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or going out of your way to say like you're doing a great job, or blessing them, I guess.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're doing in your home. Like in that example, you're blessing them through serving.
Yep.
You're being kind and extra generous, let's say.
Yep. I think that stuff is way.
Could you do that for the Reformed person
Yeah.
you're with? Yeah.
Yeah. I think so. And I think that stuff is ultimately going to speak louder than a set of syllogisms in a tract. And, it's like, it's somebody seeing your life, your character, your way of being. It's that's going to draw them to Christ. If anything, it'll be seeing Christ in you. It's not going to be, wow, he laid out a great argument for me. Not to say that like maybe some arguments are helpful for some people who have intellectual stumbling blocks and that sort of thing, but my priority, at least these days, is build relationship and try to show Christ before I tell you about him necessarily, Yeah. So, do you want to get to
Or maybe maybe this is too obvious, but a little time on like what would be theologically inhospitable? What does that look like, and what are we trying to avoid by having this as a value?
What's the don't?
I don't know. It's tough. Is it like if you're in the conversation about theological matters, just trying to focus on showing why they're wrong or something?
Like that's what the hospitality? What's unhospitality? What's the opposite of
inhospitable?
Yeah,
I guess.
I know. Yeah, I think again. Yeah, I think it's the difference between thinking about the conversation. You're there to serve the other person when you're being hospitable. It's actually about them first, not you. It's about what they have to say, not what you have to say.
Yeah. Here, man, how about this? Like, because I do, I was worried there that it's just not that significant of a.
We're just saying be polite to people.
I do think it goes beyond that. Like, so a passage I've been reading is this thing in Romans 14, and in the Roman church, back when Paul wrote that letter, you had the Jewish Christians who were super concerned about Sabbath and keeping like the dietary food laws from Torah. Okay. And the Gentile Christians basically like, didn't care about that stuff at all. They barely knew about the Bible, didn't think about Torah. They're introduced to Jesus in kind of a whole nother way, but they're part of the same church. And so the church became fractured when they would come together at the table. Gentiles are eating pork and whatever, and the Jews, and that seems so foreign to us, like that shouldn't matter.
But it would have been a big deal.
It would have been it was a very theological thing that the Jews were doing.
And very in your face too. Yeah.
And so Paul is saying to them in Romans 14, like, don't condemn and judge one, keep coming together. Don't fracture over this. So despite the theological differences, come together. Have fellowship. Ongoing.
Yep.
It's not just a conversation.
Yeah.
It's a partnership. You're on mission together
ongoing
as a
relationship.
church.
Yep.
I do.
Yeah.
I think it's more. That's the meatier part of this, and where the rubber meets the road in church life. And I don't know. Maybe it's just okay. How about this? Is it then right to lament that the American church is really fractured? And by that I mean, I guess all the different denominations, how minute sometimes the differences are.
Oh, yeah.
But even when they're great, I just wonder, is that a sign that the church is theologically inhospitable?
Yeah. It was astonishing to me, man, when I came over here, seeing how many churches there are. I couldn't believe it. It's like in every neighborhood, churches on every corner. Why do we need this many? Consolidate. It didn't make sense. So it's just all these different denominations. Yeah. So are you suggesting there's nothing worth breaking fellowship over? What would it take? What would it take for you to leave a church? I know I'm putting you on the spot. It's not like you've thought about that, but like,
I guess like it would have to be something about the texture, the ethos of the atmosphere of what was being showcased. Like if it became really condemnatory, judgmental, telling people, sending them away hopeless. I guess like really hammering some of the hell stuff would kind of be a bummer, and like not very helpful. So that would make me less inclined to want to be a part of it.
In fellowship.
Is that not being hospitable?
Because there are churches out there, like Westboro. There they are. What does it look like for us to be theologically hospitable to Westboro Baptist Church? I think they are so wrong, you know? Like, I just think they're about as wrong as you can be. Can I love them? I can want good for them. Yeah. Would I have fellowship with them? Could I be in a worship service with them?
Maybe it's like the principle of autonomy in law, which is like you're allowed to self-legislate however you'd like as long as you don't get in the way of people's other self-legislation.
Okay.
So, you know, direct yourself as you will. Just don't infringe on other people doing that for them. So, like, you can't steal, you can't murder, you can't harm. Maybe we should go that angle with it. Like, be theologically hospitable until, like, other people aren't willing to do that with you. I don't know. Like, because they clearly wouldn't be.
No, that's the thing. They embody the opposite of this, right?
Yeah.
It's like...
I almost don't even know how you could. Because, I don't know. Would they even sit at table with you to begin with?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. They sing worship songs, right? Could I go to their church and sing a worship song with them?
I think so.
Could I do that?
Admittedly, I don't know a ton about them, but...
I don't know.
I think it's I don't know, maybe this is coming across as too like low shelf, like super obvious stuff, but I don't know if you're listening, surely you've encountered a lot of circumstances over the years where people were not this way. We're not showing you theological hospitality. You had a question, you had a new idea about your faith, and it was shot down immediately as out of bounds, unbiblical, false teachery, anti-Jesus, or something. And you're like, well, I just kind of want to think about this openly and freely.
Not in church, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you think about a time when somebody was hospitable towards you? What that did for you? I'm trying to think who has done this for me. I mean, you have, but like, who were some of the first people? I guess the guy we work for now. He's been pretty hospitable with me. Like, I thought about things quite differently when I first got hired.
Yeah. Were you a Calvinist when you got hired?
No, fresh off the ranks though.
Okay.
Molinist, Armenian, Molinist, yeah, but still very, very much exclusionary. Like, the way is narrow, and there are a few who find it. And now I think
less that.
So, yeah, my thinking's changed, but there was space, and there has remained space for me on this team, despite my disagreements that I had back then and that I would have now.
I guess you're asking for experiences where I have still been loved as a person, despite knowing that person disagrees.
Yeah.
And has a different view.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're talking about, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I've experienced that about theology, and I've experienced it the other way, like where people break fellowship because of
something you think. Yeah. That's something.
Yeah. So that
I cannot be in fellowship with you. Dangerous, man.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Tricky thing, because fellowship's a two-way street.
So I think it's a value worth striving for, even if it's hard to pinpoint exactly the limits of it, or I don't know. And then you get into about like whole other faiths.
Yeah.
That, I mean, surely it's not like asking, like, this shouldn't be so novel a concept that it's like you sit down with other people that think differently, and you can genuinely entertain their idea, be curious about it, asking questions, and not feeling the urge to like control them or control the situation by showing all the ways that you happen to think that they're wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, is that so much to ask?
I think it's good. I think it's something to be aware of, something to be cognizant of.
Cool.
Yeah. I think that's all I got.
How about this, man? What if maybe we can close with this thought. What if you're listening, what if someone's listening and they find themselves in a faith community that they're like, oh, it's not theologically hospitable at all? Then what should they do? Like, because there's this kind of backwards thing that should they leave? And then
where they are willing to be hospitable to everybody else, you mean, but the opposite is not true.
Mm-hmm.
The community is theologically hostile.
Like, should they get out, or is that not being hospitable?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like, what are steps that someone could take to try to bring this atmosphere to a greater degree in their sphere?
Well, I am thinking about my own experience here, and I would be surprised if you're in a faith community and you're the only one with questions or doubts or some differences of views. Maybe it feels like an echo chamber, and maybe it seems like everybody's hostile to your ideas. I would be surprised if there's not one other person there who is asking similar questions. And I've found that you can see a sense of relief wash over people when you create space for them to like confess their secret doubt or confess their question that they're wrestling with, and you can just hold it and be there with them, and you might find that you're not the only one there, and maybe I don't know.
Is there something about it where it's like, just to circle back, I have this thought of decoupling someone's beliefs from their value as a person or assessing their character? That you're not like thinking less of them as a person, like you're a good or bad person based on the thoughts or the beliefs, because it goes back to a former episode, and it can get complicated. I don't mean to I don't want to get too in the weeds, but back to that dogzastic voluntarism. What that says is that you have freedom to just change your beliefs.
Yeah. You get to choose
or is it involuntary? You just kind of like find yourself believing it. And I think that's a helpful piece for this conversation, because if you're a voluntarist and you think people just have total control over what they believe, then it does become a more moral issue, let's say. Like if you think an idea is abhorrent, and someone freely chose to adopt it,
idea,
then
they are abhorrent, right?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas if the belief's more like through just life experience, and just you kind of find yourself believing them, and there's reasons and stuff and evidence still at play, but you just then I think it makes it easier to be hospitable. Because I don't know. Yeah,
there's a degree of understanding there, a degree of empathy.
I might have thought the same thing had I had
it's
that experience.
And I think another
I would probably be a Muslim if I grew up in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, surely.
Yeah, probably. See, another piece I think that's connected here is, what do you think about how do you think about God's perspective on what you believe? Does God care what you believe? Does God care what this other person believes? And I can't remember. I think we've gone there in other episodes and stuff. But if you feel
there is an episode with that thumbnail.
Is there? Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so go listen to that. But I could understand why, if you have this view of God that he is going to be chucking people into a lake of fire based on what they believe.
Yeah.
Good people, bad people, sort them out based on what they believe. Then why wouldn't you also do that? Sort people into the good and bad basket based on what they believe throughout your life. But if instead you think that God values the person, the image of God, the image bearer, the soul, regardless of the mental furniture that's going on right now, and that love runs deeper than that, then you might find that you too are capable of that kind of love.
I think that's why I like the term so much. I think you've articulated it well. Like, it's this kind of tasty Trojan horse that they're like, oh yeah, I like that, and it kind of smuggles in this whole view of doctrine and theology and what it's doing, how we should respond to it.
Yep.
That has kind of the implications you're talking about.
Yeah. I think it's all connected. Yeah.
Oh, that's really good. Cool.
Anything
Well,
else?
if you enjoyed that, we'd love to hear from you. Maybe you have a horror story about a time where there was not theological hospitality, or if you have any questions about that, how to build those kind of spaces in your faith community, I would love to talk about that. So feel free to write in at mailbag@openatruth.com, and we respond to everything that comes in. So
yeah, we want to hear what you have to say. So join the conversation. We'll see you next time. Stay curious.